Are you looking for the magic to make your life truly count? Do you want the secret formula to make every day your best day yet? Hello, and welcome to the Finishing on Fire radio show. And now, here are your show hosts, Dave Wadsworth and Greg Vance.
I'm excited for our episode today because we are talking about no retreat. And in my book, Finishing on Fire, Amazon bestseller, it talks about that. Actually, inside the cover, and I just thought about this, I was going to put, I put a picture of what I originally wanted as a cover. Well, one of the originals, and it has a tombstone here. And you can see it's on the tombstone, it says rest in peace, and you put your name there, okay? And then it says no regrets, no reservations, and no retreat. Mm-hmm. And I like that because it's just a reminder of how we live our life. And we've talked about, no regrets and no reservations, but now we're on the no retreat.
I think it'll be really good to talk about this one. This isn't necessarily one that comes up very often, at least in podcasts I listen to. So hopefully this will be, really helpful for our listener.
I like the way you've kind of had a subtitle here. It says, no retreat or isolation from life and people. And that's a good way to put it. Isolation from life and people. And when you retreat, you're basically doing that. You're cutting off and you're backing away from, you're retreating from life and you're retreating from people. And that's just a sad, sad state to be in. And you can't finish on fire when you're in a position of retreat in your life. So I like the way you put that there.
Since you brought that up in the past, we talked a little bit about my coaching practice, as a career and business coach.
Yes.
There is a segment of people that I work with that I do through another organization. I help out that organization and provide coaching services to them. And that segment is people that are essentially in deep financial trouble, and they're very close to being in arrears with their mortgages. And so they've worked with their mortgage companies. Their mortgage companies have signed them up for this coaching package in order to get them reemployed again. So it's a win-win. The person I'm working with hopefully gets to keep their home. They get to stay in their home while they're in the package, and the mortgage company doesn't have to foreclose on it. Everybody's happy. They get reemployed. Life moves on. It's a really great model. But in thinking of that, when someone's dealing with a super financial crisis like that, and it creates other issues in their life, it could have been the result of a health issue. The stress maybe caused some marital strain. And so a lot of times when I work with them, I can feel in some of our conversations, and we talk about it, of course, how they have pulled away from a lot of people, maybe even their spouse. They're not talking through things. It's can be kind of a gray, dark place to be sometimes.
Yeah, I talk about that in the book a little bit, how I had gone through a period of time, and I called it a deep, dark, soul-crushing valley of despair. It just, it's almost like a death spiral. One thing adds to another thing that leads to another thing, and before you know it, you're withdrawing, and financial pressures are huge in your life. Okay, the uncertainty is huge. Okay, and so actually in that situation you're talking about, there's a lot of pressure. Well, on the bank, they don't want to repo a house. They don't. That's a pain in the butt.
Right.
The person there is feeling the crush of that, financial pressure. And then you as a coach, and you're really good. You've got a lot of experience in the career meets purpose. And you're really good at coaching people through this. Okay. You've seen everything, and I'm proud of you because you've helped a lot of people, but there's pressure on you because you're kind of squeezed between the bank and the person that's in trouble, and you're kind of the glue or the lubricant, so to speak, between the two hard places. Okay. And so it's like, you're kind of trying to perform for both ends, because you want to help the bank, you want to help, the people in need, and you're a people person. You really like to add value, to people, and you've done that. So that's a cool thing. So I know the points we have here, we talked about, you need to stay in the game and avoid getting disconnected when things are not going your way. And that's hard when you're in those situations. That's hard to do, but you got to be a person of action. So, so that's really important. So,
Well,
go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I was going to say, to think about that a little bit more, especially, we've talked a lot about relationships. We're going to talk about more, in some future episodes as well. And there's just this human human trait, I guess it is. Most people, when they get into a jam, they pull away from others when there's so many other people that are around them, whether they're family, their spouse, maybe even coworkers, people at church, that really care about them and would be happy to help, but they don't know because that person's pulled so far away. And so a couple of things that I find are helpful is just to help that person that I'm working with, take stock of where they're at, what's still going right. Maybe something going wrong, but there's a lot of things going right. But who can they really get reconnected with? We're not even talking about the job at this point. We're just trying to help them have a support system around them so that they can be people to cheer them on, maybe help make some contacts for them and some things like that. But often once people can get re-engaged, what they really need is they need a plan forward. And, that can come from a good friend. You and I've worked through things together. And so that's just one of those things that a relationship can really help with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, when you're in a financial crisis, which it's a crisis, it seems like your vision becomes very limited. And you can't see all the options because you're so focused and afraid. You're in a state of fear.
Yep.
And fresh eyes and a fresh mind and someone with a caring heart can see that. They can see so many options that you cannot see. And so if you can just lay out very simple, even baby steps, okay, just one or two of them to get them moving. Because I know you made a note here, be a person of action. And I've found that in my life. I've dealt, which is amazing to me, but I've dealt with depression in my past. And I've struggled with that, which is, it doesn't make sense to me because I'm a fun guy. I have more friends than anybody I know. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, but I know that chemical imbalance, especially in the wintertime when the days are short and dreary and cold and dark, it's just like, oh my gosh, it kind of grips you. But one thing I've found when you're struggling with something like that is just action. You need to do something. Get up out of your chair, out of your bed, out of your home, and move. And just the simplest thing.
Right.
My dad, taught me that years ago when I was struggling as a teenager. He says, Dave, you need to get out and go out and be with your friends. Just go. And I'm like, I don't want to. And he says, now's the time. You need to.
Right.
You got to take action. And I will remember that forever from my dad. He was a great man. But matter of fact, I dedicated this book to my dad. Finishing on Fire is actually dedicated to my dad because the great inspiration he was to me and so forth. But yeah, taking that action, I think, Greg, is a key. And you lay out that first step and the second step. But people in that position, they don't need much. They just need a little bit of light, for the next step, because they can't see very far. They're very narrow in their focus. So yeah. Good point.
Great advice by your dad. That's perfect. Yeah, because it doesn't even have to be anything related, as he talked to you about, related to whatever the area or the issue is. It's just getting back in the game, as we're talking about. getting some activity, getting some wins, and those wins can lead to bigger wins. It's really important.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. One thing I've done here lately, I've started this a TikTok account. It's a little short 1-minute videos, and every day I just give a 1 minute. I'm called the Attitude Answer Man. Okay, it's like attitude _ answer man, and I go on and I do some 1 minute video on positivity, having a good attitude, smiling, being kind to people, just simple acts, very simple acts, but an injection, basically a shot of positivity every day. And I try to put that out there, and I just try to encourage people. Some of it I do it for myself to encourage myself, but it really is, people need to hear, the encouragement. They need to hear that little shot of positivity. And that's what I try to do on this TikTok, because it's very short, sweet, to the point. And every day there's something different in my life that I run into, and I'm like, oh, and I make a little video of it and I post it on TikTok. And so far it's been, thousands and thousands of viewers that have actually viewed my videos. And that's exciting to me, to be able to help people, not retreat, not to isolate, but if they are in that position, that rock in a hard place position, maybe a few of these videos, they watch those and they're like, wow, he's got a good point. Okay, I need to do that. So I like to be that person to encourage and help people make that little step, whatever it is. So
yeah, you do a great job on those videos. They are uplifting, inspiring. So if somebody's, so we have a listener on here today. What's the handle again that you're under?
Yeah, I go under the Attitude Answer Man. So it's attitude _ answer man, and so that's the one. And you just look that up and you'll see, Dave Wadsworth. And I always introduce him. This is the way I start out, Greg. I say, good morning, because I always like to say good morning for some reason. That's always been something. So good morning. I say, good morning. This is Dave Wadsworth, your Attitude Answer Man. And I have more good news for you. And I just like that as an intro every time. That puts my name out there. It gives people kind of a spark, and also the idea that there's more good news, because a lot of times what's coming at us, hard and heavy, is negative news, and just the bloody and ugly. And I just so that's what I'm doing every day. And I just hopefully I'm really touching lives, because like I said, thousands and thousands of people have viewed my videos so far. And by the time this actual airs, this episode airs, it's going to be, well into the tens of thousands that, have viewed those. So
absolutely.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it. So I think you had some words of wisdom we wanted to pass along to people today. You want to roll with that, or you want me to?
Why don't you go ahead, Greg? That's something that you come up with as far as the the wording and stuff, and I think it's really good. You brought it out of the NASB version of the Bible. So
okay, yeah. So so if you're listening to the podcast today, obviously you are you're hearing our voices. We thought this would be helpful for you. For those of you that have at least read some of the Bible, this part will probably be fairly familiar for you, but this is Ephesians 6:13 through 14, those verses in the NASB, as Dave said. And so I'm going to read it. I don't have it memorized. Therefore, take up the full armor of God, so that you will be able to resist on the evil day, and having done everything, to stand firm. Stand firm, therefore, having belted your waist with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness. Those are some heavy words there.
Yeah, a lot of heavy words. I think the point was, what the main thing was this is, if you've done all you can do and you're in a position, it's like, oh my gosh, I just, I can't go any further. I cannot move another muscle. I can't take another step. I want to retreat. I want to, pull back. But here in this, it says, once you've done everything you can do, it says, having done everything, stand firm. Well, just stand there. Okay. Yeah, you don't know your next step. Okay. But stand firm and don't waver. Don't step backwards. Just stand and think and pray and look around for the next step. And I
Exactly.
really like that. Stand firm. So that's a good one. I appreciate that, Greg.
Yeah, you just made me think of something else. A lot of times people, you may have heard this quote, which I'm going to butcher it probably, but when people, because I just thought of it here, but when people, they'll say, when you're unsure of your next step, you don't know the exact next step,
Right.
just consider what would likely be a small next step that you could take. And to do that one. So you don't need, the takeaway is you don't need to have to know the perfect full burdened, full picture next step. Instead, you can sometimes just take small, minute next steps that will get you to the next understanding of that next step.
Oh, I like that. I tell you what, that reminds me of Andy Andrews. Andy Andrews, my favorite author, he talks about people that are stuck and they're standing there and they're like, okay, I don't know my next step. And he said, well, okay, so you don't know your next step. But if you did, what do you think it might be if you took a guess?
Exactly.
What would that next step be? And he says, usually they'll kind of haul around and then they'll say, well, I would, probably do this. And he says, well, then do that.
Do it. Yeah, exactly.
I just love Andy Andrews. He is awesome. Oh my gosh. His
Yes,
book,
he is.
his podcast, he's just a remarkable man, a good man. And he's funny. He's really a hilarious guy. He actually did a whole bunch of stand-up comic stuff. His life was amazing. Growing up and as a teenager, losing both his parents within 6 months of each other, and then becoming homeless, living under a fishing pier down on around Gulf Shores, Alabama, and then coming through, and now he's a best-selling author. He's been invited to the White House 4 times by 4 different presidents. He's been there and entertained.
Wow.
He toured with so many people like Joan Rivers. He was opening act for Joan Rivers for a couple years, for Kenny Rogers, who just passed away not too long ago. They were buddies and he toured with them. He'd been with, I think, Cher just a little bit, Garth Brooks, I think. I mean, just so many people. And he's really changed a lot of lives. He's brought what he says is perspective to life, and this retreat goes right in with that. No retreat is huge in his message, and the way you bringing that up, that was such a good point, because it reminds me of Andy saying, well, what would the next step be? If you don't know what it is, but you think, and I like that, and I think that's the way we need to think is, well, yeah, we don't know that next step. Well, you got, what would it be, and just think about that. And even a micro step,
right.
So that's good stuff. So
you don't have to have all the answers.
Oh, oh my gosh. And Greg, I'll admit it. That's probably one of my biggest issues is I spend too much time consuming information and not enough time acting upon all that. I mean, I've read so many books. It's unbelievable. I was thinking this week, I don't know of anybody that's read more books than I do. I actually average over a book a day. Has been my average over the last 4 years. Averaging a book a day. And I was with John Lee Dumas last week. This was kind of neat. We had lunch and I saw him. He was a keynote speaker at this conference I was at. And I gave him a copy of my book, which is kind of funny, but he's got a New York Times best-selling book that came out, amazing stuff. And one quote in there that really hit me, he talked about how, sometimes you just, you're learning and you're consuming all this information and all this, you're kind of a buildup. He says, sometimes you just need to walk up and hit the ball It's kind of like golf, he says, just step up and hit the ball. You just need to do something and stop, preparing and preparing and preparing. It's kind of like this podcast, Greg. We've been talking about this for a long time.
Yep.
We've been preparing and coming up with ideas and doing all kinds of stuff. And right now we're here and I'm excited, and I appreciate your input because, you've got a lot of really good ideas and good takes on life that you come from a different perspective than I do. And so, but yeah, so that's really cool stuff.
So I think you were going to share from your book with us today. You had a good quote here from Mr. John Maxwell.
Yeah, John Maxwell. I love him. He's kind of become, he is the guru on leadership. And he's written, oh my gosh, wow, 50 books, maybe 45 or 50 books.
It's well over 40. I don't know the number. It's inspiring.
Yeah. I've got a speaking coach. I do, professional speaking, motivational speaking, and my coach is down north of Atlanta, Georgia, in Duluth area, and they've got a John Maxwell conference center down there in Duluth, right off the interstate. I think it's 85 going north. And John Maxwell, we've had training, our speaking training in that building, that conference center, which is really cool. And we got to go in and tour a little bit of where John Maxwell's the Equip ministry is at, that they put together and stuff. And it has on display, it has all his different books that he wrote.
My goodness.
It was awesome. It was like a whole wall, it's almost like a trophy case, so to speak. I mean, it had them, that's the way it was set up, like you'd see in a school. And it was really neat. And it had all these different books, and there were a lot of books, and stuff. So, but this is a quote that I took away from John Maxwell, because a lot of like I said, on my TikTok videos, I talk about your attitude and how critical that is in life every day. And so my Finishing on Fire book, this back in, like John Maxwell says, this is my quote. Like John Maxwell says, with your attitude, you see difficulty in every opportunity when you should be looking for opportunities in every difficulty. I'd like that, and it's all your perspective. Like Eddie Andrews says, it's all your attitude. Okay. A lot of people see the bad, the negative, the difficulty in every opportunity. They see, oh, there's a problem. It won't work because of this, or it won't work because of that. And he said, when you should be looking for opportunities in every difficulty. And he's flipping your vision or flipping the script on the way most people kind of look at things. So I thought that was a really good quote.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it brought to, when we were looking at that quote before the show, when I read the book, obviously, and it brought to mind the coach that you and I have in common, our mentor, Dan Miller. And he says, yeah, we love Dan Miller. But he says, when you come upon a situation that maybe isn't the most pleasant thing to go through, you could have a disaster, a financial thing we have going on, whatever loss of a job, whatever it may be. The question he asks is, what does this make possible?
Oh yeah.
And it's one of those questions that at first you think you just lost your job, and you go, what do you mean, what's this make possible? This isn't good.
Yeah, you're actually thinking this is disaster.
Right.
And I remember Dan's wife, Joanne, mentioned this. She was talking to, I'll think of him in a minute, but one of their mutual friends. And that's what she said. They quote this all the time. What does this make possible? And so their mindset is, okay, yeah, it's a disaster, but look at opportunities instead of looking at the disaster. Okay. What's the opportunity within this? And that's just it's a whole mindset thing. And that's the thing I love about Dan Miller. Oh my gosh. He's a thinker. He is constantly, and he sees the stuff, that a lot of times we're blinded by or blinded to, he sees these things, and I'm like, wow, that's a good way to look at that.
Right. It's kind of like retraining your mind, in psychology terms and coaching, professions. We talk a lot about reframing things.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's a very, great question to help you reframe something. So
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's cool. Now, were you wanting to talk about this story? You talked about your outsourcing project,
yeah.
or how it changed your life on a, I mean, you run into something, I guess, through your career. So can you explain that? I know we had it in our notes here. So
Yeah, absolutely. So for our listener, what Dave's referring to is, so I was an information technology executive, and I recommended, sponsored, and got approved by our board of directors the largest outsourcing project in the company's history. In fact, it was the largest contract signed in the company's history.
wow.
And so it was, and it wasn't done just to save money. That's what people think when they think about outsourcing. There were very, very important strategic reasons for the company to do it, because we were an organization that grew through mergers and acquisitions, and we needed to be able to expand and contract resources quickly, and so that it wouldn't be a holdup for us, like when we bought a company or something like that. So, as they say, best laid plans sometimes don't work out as advertised. So the short version of the story is, I spent multiple years attempting to get the outsourcing provider to perform as advertised and what the stipulations of the contract. That did not work out. And it became apparent that, frankly, if I had stayed in the role, I would have had to go through the process of moving from that provider to a new provider, doing that whole transition. That would have easily been probably at least a couple more years by the time it was all cleaned up. So I made the opportunity with, have been months and months of discussions with my wife, that this was the exact time that we had been hoping for, where I could leave the corporate world and to start my own coaching business. And so this was the catalyst to allow that to happen. It's one of those things where, from my perspective, I'm not a person that likes to, quote, give up on things, but the personal toll, the price that I was paying through my health, my family, everything, it was in the big picture, it was the right thing to do, and would help me realize a dream that I had been focusing on and kept saying, well, not now, not now, not now. This was the time. So we
So
made it happen.
okay. So you were in this messy situation. It was ugly on ugly on ugly. It was strung
Yes.
out over a long period of time, and it was just like a deep dark valley or rut that you were in, and just, did Sherry, then your wife, see that and say, hey, Greg, let's look at this? Did she see some of the problem that maybe you didn't, or before you did, or what did she see and help you with?
Yeah. So this was so stressful that we were pretty well in tune with each other, because it was, I would be on, I was easily working for an extended period of time, 70, 80, 90 hours a week for 2 years. And so I know there's a lot of people that work 2 jobs. And so and all that, and may work those hours, but the load of stress on top, it was very common every day for me to show up at work, or before I got to work, there would be, the disaster or the crisis of the day, where it would take entire divisions of the company couldn't work that day, or something like that. The websites weren't working. It was super, super stressful. It cost business for the organization. Ultimately, a lawsuit ensued, and all that. Not with me, but but I helped them win the lawsuit. But anyway, yes, she was super helpful in us navigating that together, because if
Yeah.
I'd tried to stuff that down and hide it, I would have just melted down or just flamed out
You'd
and exploded.
Yeah, yeah. You'd have fired up and exploded. I see Glenda over the years, we've been married 36 years, and Glenda she sees things that I don't, and she tries to get
Mhm.
my attention. Sometimes I need a hammer upside the head, but she will. I tell her, I said, if you want to get my attention, or if you want me to do something, I always tell her, I said, get your hands, both hands, put them on my cheeks, and look in my face, look in my eyes, and say, Dave, do this. I don't want you to assume that I know what I need to be doing or whatever, but mostly it's with when she has things she wants me to be doing. I tell her to be direct, to be very direct. Don't guess or let me guess. But this thing here, she sees things, and she has a whole different perspective. And when your spouse, comes to you with those things, you need to listen, because they
Right.
care about you, and they care about, the family, they care about all that. So I think you just need to be in tune to that, and not, we talk about withdrawing or retreating, from our spouse, retreating from friends, retreating from work relationships, whatever. And so that's so important that we listen.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay, so to move in a little lighter direction, why
Good.
don't we why don't we talk about one of Dave's classic animal stories?
And now, it's time for Wodsy's World. Yes, Dave Wadsworth's true life animal stories.
So for our listener today, if you're a first time listener, Dave has a wealth of animal encounters, we'll call them. I think the numbers 43-ish different animals, though there's different versions for every animal. So I simply pull a number out of the air, and Dave checks his list where he's cataloged all those stories and shares one with us. So today is number 25 I'm going to pick.
Number 25. And as I go through my list, this is, I've got some, you're right, Greg. I got so many animal stories, good, bad, and ugly. And 25 is actually chickens, chicken stories. Oh my
All
gosh.
right.
Chicken stories. What is a good chicken story? I remember when I was a little boy, my brother and we'd go over to great grandpa, Ayers was the name, and he had a chicken coop in the back, and the chicken coop was like it was almost like one of these grain bins that you see, a little bitty small thing, but we'd go back there and we get a little chicken feed, and we wanted to feed the chickens, and the hens weren't a problem. This thing was it was almost like a little wigwam, the old Indian wigwams. It's kind of a roundish, odd shaped thing. And that's what it looked like to us. It's kind of like a big, wigwam. We'd go in there and we'd try to give the chickens. Well, the hens, they loved us, but he had a rooster in there, and that rooster was mean. And we usually have shorts on, and stuff. And that rooster would just chase us and peck at us and flap its wings. Of course, at that size, we weren't very big kids, 5, 6 years old. And I remember that rooster scared us to death. I mean, he looked like a giant, to us. He was probably, I don't know, half our size, as far as height and stuff. And man, you talk about, those were fun days, but those were scary days. And now I'm thinking, it's a rooster, just, you don't shoo them away and stuff. But they were aggressive. That the rooster was. The chickens, the hens, they were just fine. They liked a little food and stuff. But we tried to get into that coop, and my gosh, that rooster, he was mean. I'm telling you. So that's one of my memories of trauma as a child.
Oh my gosh.
Where the rooster chased us boys around. It was funny. I don't know why we kept going back. We must have not learned our lesson the first time or second time. So yeah, but I remember that. And my gosh, that's been Oh, 55 years. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my gosh, no kidding. Oh, I love that. Oh, wow.
Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
roosters aren't known for being the most friendly, most friendly.
aggressive. And so we did have to retreat at that when the rooster would come, we retreated quickly. And so going along with the show, yeah, no retreat. Well, that was the time you needed to, or they were just going to peck the tar out of you.
But but as you just said, you kept coming back for more.
We did, didn't we? I don't know if we were brave or stupid, you know. I think there's a fine line there somewhere, you know, or you know. But
Yeah, you came back with a new
yeah.
plan each time. Yeah.
I know. We thought, oh, it'll be different this time. You know, we'll bring more food or whatever, or the rooster will be kind of, you know, maybe
Distracting.
hiding somewhere out back. You know, and he won't be around. It's like, nope, every time.
Oh
Oh
man, I
gosh.
love that. So our next special segment, mainly movie moments.
And now it's time for manly movie moments.
You were going to share a, a movie you recently watched again. I've seen it. Let's see, I've only seen it once though, and it definitely is one of my top favorite movies. It
Yeah.
really impacted me well. But tell us about that.
Yeah. You know, we've got a mutual friend, Leslie Peters, lives down in Dallas, Texas, and
Hmm.
good guy. Leslie's very talented, really good with financial. He helps a lot of people with credit repair and dealing with all that, the credit and stuff. He's taught a lot of college classes and different things. Talented guy. But Leslie and I are actually working on a podcast, and by the time this comes out, it may actually be out there. Who knows? But it's called Black and White Men Talking, and
Hmm.
basically we're sitting on a bench, and he's a big black fella, I'm a big white fella, and we're just sitting there as friends talking and just, you know, figuring stuff out. And I know in today's society there's a lot of media push on anger and hatred and division and all this
Hmm.
stuff, and who did this and who did that, and we're just being friends, and we're just saying, hey, you know what, no matter what everybody else wants to say, let's figure it out, you know. Let's
Right.
talk about it. Let's just, you know, let's just be human beings, you know. And that's the way most people are. And Leslie and I both agree that, you know, there's 5% on one side and 5% on the other that they're just mean people and they want trouble. But the other 90%, you know, on each side and in the middle, okay, they just want to live life. They just want to have, and we basically have the same stuff that we want. You know, we want to live, you know, a free life. We want to have opportunities. We want to have safe neighborhoods. We want to have a nice home to live in. We want to have plenty of food, and we want safety for our children. We want the same stuff. And I think for the
Yep.
most part, we get along just fine. And it's just when people come in, the mean people on both ends that stir it up in the middle. And this movie, you know, this manly movie moments. We talk about retreat, and this movie called Green Book,
Hmm.
Green, Green Book, and it's about a relationship. There's two guys. The one gentleman is a he's an Italian in New York, and he's a rough guy, and he's
Hmm.
kind of a bouncer, kind of a guy with a he's got a reputation of taking care of business. You know, if there's any trouble, he's going to take care of it, and his family's uh, fairly isolated, I guess. They're in their own community of Italians, and they're fairly prejudiced, but they don't, you know, they don't act, you know, they don't go out actively looking for trouble. And the other gentleman is a Dr. Donald Shirley, and
Hmm.
he is a black gentleman and very accomplished, amazing pianist, and he plays all kinds of just amazing music on the piano, and he has his own trio. It's him and a couple guys. They have a bass fiddle and something else, and he plays the piano, and he is like world renowned. So educated. He knows several languages. Just a very sophisticated man, and but they're just kind of thrust together because Donald Shirley, he's going on a tour, and the movie talks about having a 2-month tour and ending up around Christmas back in the early 60s. And I know, Greg, you had done some research, and it actually, the tour went on, I don't know, 1.5 2 years or whatever, extended period of time. But this tour, Donald Shirley, Dr. Shirley, wanted to go down in the Deep South and perform. And he really wanted to figure out, himself, how he could deal with the prejudice, the bigotry, the racism, and all the ugliness. And he was wanting to face it and do his part, really, to I think, to break the barriers and break down some of these ridiculous barriers that people had. And he was willing to do this. And the thing about it was, while he played up in the northern states, when he started the tour, for the most part, everything's good. But when he moved south and he performed, I think in, I believe it was North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana and stuff, he encountered some real ugly, hateful people. And a lot of them are trying to be nice, but they were being ugly too. And so, but I know Dr. Shirley, he was facing the big bad giant of prejudice and racism, and he was not retreating from it, because his band members talked to this Tony Lipp, Valalonga, who was kind of has become his chauffeur and protector, and also he made sure he got him from what do you call it? I guess event to event. That he had to perform at, and he made sure that was his job to do that, and he did a great job of doing that. But the band member said, "Hey, Dr. Shirley, he did not have to come down here and go through all this ridicule, all this racism, and all this ugly stuff. He could have stayed up north and been just fine, and he had got paid double what he was making on this tour, and no hassle, and not having a hassle. And he actually was living above Carnegie Hall in New York. And that was his place, and it was like an apartment is like a palace. It was amazing. But this guy was so talented, and yet the clash between him and Tony Lipp, the driver, the Italian driver, and then going south, and some of the things that he overcame. But he wanted to grow as a man and see that he could face this stuff and not retreat from it. And his relationship with Tony become so amazing, how they both were transformed through this. And they both, were strong-willed men, obviously, and they didn't want to retreat. And I was really, it's really a good movie. And it shows a lot of history of how things were, and how ugly we can be if we've got a frame of mind that just sees certain things about people. And I'm gonna bring this up. I gotta tell this. One of the things, it was so funny. Tony Lipp, the Italian guy, he's trying to teach Dr. Shirley about the typical things that Black folks like, and he was talking about foods, and he talked about the story of chickens. Well, they were going through Kentucky, and they stopped and got Kentucky Fried Chicken. Well, Dr. Shirley had never had fried chicken. He just, he had quite a history of, very, very expensive, not expensive taste, but very, more of a cultured taste, I guess, but it was funny that Tony had to teach him. He says, "Hey," he stopped and got a bucket of fried chicken and Kentucky Fried Chicken. He said, "Oh man, this is so good. You got to have some," And his Dr. Shirley, no, leave me alone. He's in the back seat. And finally he gets him to eat a chicken leg, and he's like, "Well, this is pretty good," and then he gets him to eat a thigh or something. And it's funny. Then they went to a mansion in the South, and and the staff had told the leadership there, the owner of the home and all this stuff, said, they said, "Here, if you want to provide a meal for Dr. Shirley, this is the kind of meal that he would like." And they brought out a big plate of fried chicken. And it was funny. And Tony looks across the table and he points at him and says, see, that's what, because he was just kind of the opposite of a typical, black person as far as that goes. But Tony's like, man, isn't this what you folks like? And it was funny that he was teaching him, and then all of a sudden there they are. It's just funny. And we need to, I think sometimes as I get older, I need to laugh at myself more and realize that I think things and I've had paradigms, and it's like, it's silly. Some of the things that I've carried, and not mean or hateful stuff, but just kind of silly things. And that movie really busted some of that stuff up. It was pretty good. So highly recommend that. But it's just a good movie of not retreating in the face of just meanness and hatred and bigotry and racism. And Tony and Dr. Shirley teamed up and they took it on. It was pretty amazing. So yeah, that's our manly movie moment.
Yeah, I really appreciated that movie. And part of what you said there about kind of, if you want to say it, pitting paradigms together. You could have, the cool part about the movie is that it's actually a real story. It's not just something that somebody made up and said, oh, wouldn't it be interesting to put these two people in this position? Well, no, they put themselves into that position, and just seeing all those, stereotypes and pushed against one another. And like you said, Dr. Shirley was really from a whole nother cultured world. And even he probably thought, as you just pointed out, when he went to the South, he didn't fit the stereotype, so to speak. And so there were even some of those things for both those people to reckon with their own cultures, but also with each other. I thought that's what was cool.
Yeah. And and the whole movie, the name of the movie Green Book is actually about a green book that had a listing of the hotels where and maybe restaurants too, but I know it's hotels where Black folks could stay when they traveled. Okay. And this green book said, okay, these are hotels that you can stay in, because most of the hotels wouldn't let them stay. And it was sad. And you think about that and you thought, man, that is ridiculous. And it broke your heart to think of people being treated this way. It just made you sick. But they had this green book, and they would look through it and say, okay, when you're in this location, these are the one or two, hotels or motels that you can stay in, and you're accepted there. And a lot of times they were in separate hotels because it would have a Negroes only, hotel, and then Tony Lipp would be maybe a block away at another hotel, and it just made you sick at your stomach to think of people being treated in that fashion and stuff. But yeah, that's what the movie, the title was, Green Book. So if people didn't realize that kind of explains a little bit. So
Absolutely. Yeah, appreciate you sharing that with us. That remembrances. Yeah, you remembered a lot more details than I did. So so ready to take us out today, Dave, and wrap us up with a 2-minute warning?
And now it's time for the 2-minute warning.
Yes, let's do that. Tell you what, we like to talk about, finishing on fire and living every day and making it your best day, and looking at your life and your relationships, your situations, and doing the best you can, and refocusing every day, because yesterday's gone, tomorrow's not here. But today is the day that you own it, and really own the day. And so we like to have, and being a football fan, I like the 2-minute warning, because it's like, okay, it's crunch time. It's time to take action. And Greg, I know we like to help people take action, and it's a very simple step. Like you said, maybe it's a micro step, but this is a simple step. And here's what I want you to do. Okay. You got to think about this. What in your life are you resisting and retreating from? Okay, what in your life, think of this, what in your life are you resisting and retreating from? Okay. And all you have to do, here's what you do. You got to name it. All right. Pull that question out, put it in your mind and take it around and round and say, okay, what is it that I'm resisting or retreating from? And your first step is like the big elephant in the room, what is it? Well, we've been hiding it. Okay. You just need to name it. So write it down. And once you do that, I think it's going to open up your mind to the next step. Once you finally verbalize what that issue is, I believe that's where you're going to be. So that's our warning. That's our step. That's our single step.
Thank you for listening to the Finishing on Fire radio show. Be sure to visit finishingonfire.com for more great content. Go light your world.